Welcome to Spirit Speaks. I'm your host, Lisa Virtue. And today we have a special guest back on the show, Nanci Danison. So we've done the show with Nanci before where she told us all about her amazing and very profound near-death experience. It's one of the most extensive that I've ever encountered. And so if you'd like to hear the whole story that Nanci has to share, you can watch that back either on video or I have a podcast recording on lisavirtue.com. But for today, we've got Nanci back so that she can talk a little bit more about some of the things that we covered and answer some questions from viewers. So welcome back to the show, Nanci. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. It's good to see you again, Lisa.
It really is. I think we enjoy each other a lot.
Yes.
So last time you were telling us about that we have 5 spiritual superpowers, and we didn't have time to go into that. So today I think that's what we're going to talk about.
First off, I want to make it clear that these are not my opinions. These are not my views. These are not thoughts I ever came up with. I'm not that smart or creative. All the information that I, put forth in my books and CDs and DVDs and YouTube videos and, everywhere is from my memories of the information that I got directly from source while I was in the afterlife. Now, when I say source, I mean what other people mean when they say God or Yahweh or the supreme being or, whatever their chief deity is. And I don't use the word God because my experience in human life has been that most people think of God as being human-like.
Right.
And the entity that I became intimately familiar with in the afterlife has almost nothing in common with humans. It doesn't have any physical mass, and it struck me as more of an extremely large energy field. So when I visualize it, I think more of like the sun and how the sun has a corona and the corona kind of flares off into the atmosphere and then sunlight goes even further, all the way to Earth and other planets. So the part that's the ball of gases that we call the sun, I would call the core personality of source. And then everything that goes off from the sun, I would call still source. But that's where the universe exists, is within that part of source that's composed of its creativity and imagination and thinking. So we souls inside humans have spiritual superpowers because I was shown and lived and made to understand that the universe isn't anything like what our religious and spiritual precepts teach us. God is not separate from us. We are, in fact, I guess what I would describe as characters in Source's mind. Like a novelist has book characters, and our characters are created uniquely by Source, and then and our characters have some Source traits and some traits that Source can imagine but can't actually experience directly. And then those characters can incarnate into pieces and parts of the physical universe.
Okay.
So and I call those characters light beings because that's what they look like when near-death experiencers go into the afterlife and they see them. They look like beings of light or beings of energy, whatever. So we are the soul part of the human soul combination. We are not the human part. The human part is manifested directly by Source through the miracle of evolution. We souls are Source intentionally and directly putting its own self-awareness and consciousness into physical matter. So that's my introduction to where all these spiritual superpowers are coming from. We have them because we're Source. And I experienced in the afterlife, and then since I've been back in the body, I've experienced the same superpowers. The first one is the one that's kind of the foundation for being able to use the other 4. And I call it multiple simultaneous levels of awareness. And that's what I called it when I was in the afterlife and I was experiencing it. I was able to like step back and see myself objectively and see my whole life and the patterns and the whys and the wherefores. And I was able to understand, myself so much better. And then I could step back from that and see myself stepping back from myself. And I could see the two layers there, the two
Wow.
levels of awareness. And I was even more aware. And I kept going backwards and backwards and seeing all these multiple levels of awareness of myself. I found a picture in the newspaper that kind of shows it. And I hope you can see
Yes.
this.
Yeah. Oh,
See
cool.
that? So that's kind of the idea. We only need to use one of those multiple levels of simultaneous levels of awareness in order to use the other 4 superpowers.
Okay.
And that's can be done in meditation, what I call meditation, not not listening to a tape, not listening to music, not, being directed visually, I'm talking about sitting or lying down or whatever, quietly, making your mind a complete blank, total blank. No words, no thoughts, no sensations. Complete absence of human input. And once you've done that, you step back and observe. Oh. Yeah, and you don't use the words, oh, the mind's blank. You just step back and see there's nothing going on there. And then eventually a thought is going to come in. And if you step back in your level of awareness, you'll see that thought come into the mind. And then you're able to go, well, if I'm the one stepping back, observing the thought coming into the mind, who's having the thought? What's the human? So once you can see, you can separate yourself in your mind as the soul from the human animal's mind, then you're in a position where you can exercise your spiritual superpowers. Now, another way to achieve that same observer or witness, perspective is by engaging the body in something that requires human concentration, but not mental concentration. For example, mowing the lawn, taking a shower, lifting weights, running on a treadmill, something where the body's got to pay attention to what it's doing, but it doesn't have to think about it because it's, a rote.
It's just enough to engage the mind in an activity, but not so much that it takes all of your focus, so that the other part of you can be doing that. That happens a lot in the yoga classes that I lead. We just engage the mind with the breath, and then the rest of it can be in that observer. Great.
Oh, that's great. I guess I should be doing yoga so I could know that. But anyway, so that's the first superpower, is being able to step back and observe our human body and our human mind as the soul that we are. The second superpower, once we get into that observer or the witness position, is we can access what I call universal knowledge. Universal knowledge is everything. Everything Source knows.
And Source knows everything? That was a question a viewer had. Does Source know everything, or is there anything that Source doesn't know?
Source, my experience living inside the core of Source, was that it does know everything intellectually. What it doesn't know is what it feels like. So it's like the difference between reading a book about a cowboy and actually getting on a horse and riding the range and, roping cattle and, doing the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So the reason why Source created the universe in its own mind, and the reason it's created all these characters and things that are different than Source, is so it can experience what it feels like and match those feelings to knowledge, to intellectual knowledge. And so when I'm talking about universal knowledge, I'm talking about the combination of the intellectual and the emotional or the experiential knowledge of having lived through it. And
Mm.
that's what we souls do. We gather those feelings and experiences and that experiential knowledge for source.
Nanci, I had, as I connect with spirit and talk with light beings, I guess, they've had the message before to me that just existing is you've succeeded in life because you are experiencing and you can't not experience when you're here. Does that sound accurate? I mean, we can do all sorts of things and make it more and enrich it, but would you say that's really just being in a physical body is the reason that we're here or a main purpose?
Yes, I was told and shown that the reason we come into human life is to see what does it feel like to live a human life.
Mm.
So if that's what you do, if you do nothing more than eat, sleep, recreate, procreate, and drink water, um, and live a biological human life, you served your purpose because that's what you wanted to feel. There are others among us who've been there, done that. We've
Mm-hmm.
incarnated into humans more than once. And so we oftentimes bring into um, an incarnation a goal of something that we want to accomplish, not just living a human life. There's nothing wrong with just living a human life, and it's supposed to be joyful. And we're gonna get to why it doesn't always work out that way. But when we access universal knowledge by stepping back and observing the human, that puts us in touch with the rest of us that stays in the afterlife. I had no idea before I died that when we incarnate, only part of our energy goes into the physical form. The rest of it stays in the afterlife.
Mm.
And that part that stays in the afterlife knows what we're up to. I mean, that part knows what we want to do, what our goals are, whether we're on track. So, to my way of thinking, if you want guidance for your life, hallelujah, it's right there. The rest of you in the
The
afterlife
rest
can
of
tell you
you.
exactly what you want to know. But you have to
Exactly.
get into that observer out of the human mindset, out of the human way of thinking in order to get that information. But once you get into that observer, that witness role, you can just ask yourself, hey, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? Or, what do you recommend? Or am I on track? Or, whatever you want to know.
Mhm.
You can also access directly Source's entire data bank of information
Mm.
and get things mundane and esoteric. So you can ask for answers to all your spiritual questions. Yeah, and that I think that's kind of what you do, isn't it, Lisa, when you're talking to spirit?
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
mostly talking you're talking
A
about
lot of it
esoteric
I'm
things.
talking, yes, all sorts of things. It's been enough years now that all the questions are coming through. But, when I'm connecting, there's definitely when I'm connecting with my greater self, and particularly when I'm just looking for my own answers in my own life, I can feel it's like a feeling inside of me, a knowing inside of me, and it has an understanding that I know is greater than what I was just dealing with, and so I can receive that knowingness. And then I also end up in the channeling that I do, talking with what I call spirit guides, which I would think is light beings and the probably the greater aspect of other people as well, and just receiving that. But it does take being in that quiet observer to be able to distinguish, okay, that's my human mind, and that's I put that aside, and this is something that feels different and wonderful.
And you expressed it perfectly when you said knowing. That's when you're sure you're getting information from source, is you just feel this deep knowing, it's true.
Yeah, yeah. When there's a questioning, that's not it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the human mind working on the
Yeah.
problem, trying to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have accessed universal knowledge for simple things. Um, I can remember one in particular. I have this accounting software that sometimes baffles me, and I can figure out, and it's double entry, debit and credit. And I can figure out where the debit goes, but I couldn't figure out where the credit goes. And, I worked on it and I searched the internet and I, asked questions of the community for, QuickBooks, and I, did all this stuff, and I called my sister who's a bookkeeper, and, nobody could come up with an answer. So finally I just, went into the meditative state and I stepped back and I said, listen, I know somebody out there knows the answer to this. Just tell me already. And I got this little voice in my ear. Oh, you're supposed to credit such and such. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, it's anything you want to know, literally anything you want to know. Now, some people have asked me, does that mean you can find out your future?
Mm.
The answer to that is yes and no. Like, I've had a life review where I saw my future. I had that life review while I was in the body. I got out of the body to have the life review, but that was one time when I saw my future. But the real answer is we manifest physical life moment by moment. There's no future until we manifest it. There's nothing set in stone. There's nothing predestined. There's nothing, no karma, nothing. It's all right here in our own hands. Well, spiritual hands, not human hands. So manifesting physical reality is the third spiritual superpower.
Would you say, Nancy, with the future that we sort of create or we're on a like a vibrational track? So it's like with everything that we've so far manifested, we're heading in a certain direction and the energy is kind of going that way. And if we keep on the same track, that's likely what could happen. But at any moment, we can go, you know what, I'm going this way instead, and change direction.
Well, that's the beauty of manifesting. It's the power that Source uses to create and maintain the universe.
Mm-hmm.
We can create and maintain our own universe. And that idea of a track that you're talking about, what causes that is that we souls inside these bodies manifest into the body's physical reality what we souls deeply and truly believe about life, about ourselves, about the afterlife, about everything. And so and we will constantly, unconsciously manifest the same things over and over because we're manifesting our unconscious beliefs. And that's going to feel like a path because that's what we've been doing. And when you're talking about, making a turn off the path, we can do that by using two techniques in conscious manifesting. Two techniques. One is conscious manifesting. The other is to kind of fix our unconscious manifesting. Conscious manifesting is where we deliberately set out to create an event or a circumstance or an experience in our life where we go into that meditative state and we form the intention to create whatever, create a new job, create a new house, create a, whatever. The bigger, more important part of the manifesting power is to fix our unconscious manifesting.
Yes.
Because, we start forming our beliefs literally in utero. We souls enter fetuses in utero at different times. You can't pinpoint when it happens. And we can hear everything that's being said around us. And we start thinking, oh, that's what it's like. Oh, that must be true. We have no reason not to believe everything we hear. We have no ability to determine what's a joke and what's real. We have no ability to determine when somebody's wrong or right or crazy or, so
Mm-hmm.
everything that we pick up in utero and then after we're born and then as we're children growing up, everything we hear, we believe and we make judgments about those beliefs. For example, we can come up with a crazy thought that our parents don't love us
Mm-hmm.
based on, who knows what, like you're watching a TV show or, it can be anything, but we can come up with just wrong beliefs. If our father doesn't like his job, we may grow up believing that everybody hates their job and it's a chore and you shouldn't even try to find a job that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
We can go up to believe that it's normal for our parents to slap us around
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we experience and we believe what we experience. And so there are a lot of real bottom line beliefs that people grow up with that the soul absorbs and then manifests the physical life to match. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've grown up with the erroneous belief that you're not lovable because you're ugly, you will manifest a life where you don't act lovable and you don't present yourself as attractive, and you will reinforce that belief by manifesting events that match it. And
Mm-hmm.
you can really go down a rabbit hole that way,
Yeah.
but you can change your beliefs.
Thank
And
goodness.
that Well, and that's the most important thing about manifesting to understand is that if you change your belief, you change your life because you
Mm-hmm.
start manifesting from a healthier unconscious belief. And you will start manifesting events and circumstances and experiences that match your new healthy belief.
Absolutely.
And that's why I
As I've
think
seen so much evidence of that in people, and um, I do, and
coaching,
like
don't
we
you?
call it energy healing or spiritual
Yeah.
counseling, and I've seen some people that it's been so dramatic where they just they through the sessions they change that thought and everything changed for them so quickly. They're like, wow. Some people it takes longer, but you can't deny it when you see that happen. It's
Mhm.
true. This really does work. You change that deeper belief, and it can't help but everything else change because you're not responding to things in the same way. You're not approaching things in the same way. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and that's the beauty and the gift of therapy of any kind or spiritual guidance or coaching or anybody that can, a good friend, a family member, anybody
Hmm.
who can help us see that what we believe isn't true. Like
Yeah.
I've had coaching clients that call me and they think they're not a success. And I make them list, I make them make a list from the time they can remember every single thing that they've accomplished, going to elementary school, learning how, potty training, getting a gold star on a test. I mean, every single thing they can think of. And they come up with lists and lists and lists of all the things they've accomplished. And I say, doesn't that show you that you're a success?
Mm.
And then they start to see that, humans focus so much on the negative and
Hmm.
very little on the positive.
It's true.
We can manifest a more positive and a happier life by changing our beliefs. Now, the manifesting formula for consciously creating something in your life, which also applies to fixing your unconscious beliefs, is twofold. It's attention and intention. The attention part is what I call leg work. It's usually done by the body,
Hmm.
sometimes the mind, but usually the body. So, for example, like if you're looking for a new job, you go into Indeed.com, you go around to the state employment agencies, you put your resume out there in various, forms. You look for a job.
Hmm.
That's the legwork. That's the attention part. Attention can also be learning about something, like learning about your unconscious belief that you've been manifesting. And then once you've done the legwork, you go into that meditative state, that stepping back from the human mind, getting the human out of the way, and saying, I expect X, Y, or Z. I expect a new job and I want it right now. I have learned the hard way that you have to add right now in that intention, because the universe doesn't have any time. So, if you manifest something, it could be 3 years from now. By then you've forgotten what it was you're trying to manifest. So I find it works better if you say right now. And your intention, it doesn't matter what words you use, because it's really more a creative thought than it is words.
Mm-hmm.
But it's knowing that you're going to have, or you're going to do, or you're going to find whatever it is that you're manifesting.
And do you find, I know people have different ways that some people focus broadly and some people focus on specifics. So do you put out sort of the general idea, but allowing it to come in whatever form, or more, it has to look like this?
I have found that it's better if you do the general. And the reason for that is because humans are in the absolute worst position to know what's good for them.
Yes.
They have a very limited perspective. And we still have a little broader perspective, but not that much broader. But the part of us that's still in the afterlife knows what's good for us, knows what we want to do, knows what will fit. And so if we just leave it general, I know I'm going to get another job that I'm going to love right now or really soon. And then let the part of you that's still in the afterlife do the heavy lifting.
Take care of all the details.
Find out, what's really going to work for you. And then the last piece of manifesting physical reality is, you have the attention, the intention, and then you have to keep your eyes open. Because, if you try to manifest a specific thing, a specific job or a specific person or a specific house or whatever, you're going to be looking for that. And you will miss the perfect thing that's right beside you because you don't have your eyes open. So you have to have your eyes open, and you have to be in the places where you're likely to see your manifestation. Like if you're trying to get a new job, laying on the couch watching TV isn't going to get it done, because nobody's going to, walk into your family room and say, hey, got the job for you.
Exactly.
You've got to be out there in the world, in the market.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to, what we were saying before about, it's perfectly fine to just live an animal life, to just experience what it's like to be a human. If you do live life that way, you're going to miss a lot of goodies
There's
that
so
you
much
could be manifesting.
available.
Yeah.
So you're in this place that has everything possible available to you, and are you going to take advantage of that in whatever way feels inspired? And I think if you were meant to just lie around, then you'll be happy doing that. But I think most of us have, as you said, been there, done that before. We've done it a few times, so we have an intention. And if you're not moving towards that, something in you just doesn't feel right. You feel like I'm missing out on something. I have an urge. So I think we're kind of naturally come by the desire to move forward.
Perfectly stated. The other big thing that you can use manifesting for is self-healing. I learned in the afterlife that the best methods for healing the human body, mind, and emotions are energy techniques, like Reiki and healing touch and pranic healing, and I don't know the names of some of the other ones. But energy modalities work the best because everything's energy. I mean, source is energy. We're all energy. Energy is energy. Adding energy, and then with both the healer and the healee, the patient, both intending healing, gives you attention because the energy healer is doing something, usually, doing something around you or on you or,
Mm-hmm.
in your vicinity. And then you both have the intention to heal. So you've got attention and intention equals manifesting. You manifest
Mm.
healing that way.
Yes.
You do healing, don't you, Lisa?
I absolutely do that. Yeah, I was so happy when, well, it kind of fell into my life, I feel. Spirit must have brought it. But to go from really just in a regular life, not knowing or feeling able to do anything about the stuff that's going on that you don't like, and then realizing that everything is energy, and like we were talking about the beliefs, the beliefs kind of hinder the energy, and I see them as creating a blockage or a stagnancy. And so when we can work with that energy to clear that, it's easier to shift the underlying belief because everything that's built up from it clears away. So it's just, yeah, even if people just learn to do that for themselves, I think it's such a great gift to see the world that way and realize you can actually interact with it. It's not some mystical thing that, is only a special few. We all have that ability that just no one had taught us yet.
Yeah. And I learned that we can ask for energy. And really, at the bottom line, if you look at it, it's kind of a prayer. I don't
Yeah.
I don't like the word prayer because prayer makes it sound like you lack something and you're asking somebody out there to give it to you. Well, there isn't any out there. It's all, we're all one consciousness, all one entity. So, if it's available, it's in us. Um, but what I have found works is to ask all those who love me
Hmm.
to lend me their energy to help me accomplish healing or whatever my goal is.
Mm.
And I address it to sometimes by name, all the people in the afterlife that I know have passed on and who love me, people who are still, in the body, source, everything, everybody. Send me your energy, send me your healing energy, and that works. That's why prayer chains work. It's because
Yeah.
everybody's adding their energy together,
And
and
their
they're
attention and intention.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, we can also we can manifest healing just as part of our conscious manifesting. We can go into that observer position and form the intention to reduce the pain, to heal the wound, to stop an illness. Our bodies are biologically rebuild themselves over a period of time. And I'm not going to remember the exact time frames, but let's say the skin of your body replaces itself every 7 years. So each section of skin on your body should be brand new. Well, it is brand new, over a period of time. You shouldn't have a skin condition that lasts because the skin's brand new.
Right.
The reason why some medical conditions go on and on and on is because we souls remember. That's our picture of the body. We think that's supposed to be there, so we put it there. And I've noticed in myself, as soon as I think, oh, I haven't had a headache or whatever it is for a long time, I'm telling you, within 5 minutes, I'll have that headache. It's like you turn your attention to something and boom. So we can heal by just stopping the conditions that are bothering us,
Hmm.
along with using energy healing. It's not usually just one thing or another, it's all things together.
Yeah, all the tools in the toolkit.
Yeah. And then the last spiritual superpower is the best. We can experience unconditional love
That
while we're
sounds
in,
wonderful.
yeah, while we're in the body. Humans do not have unconditional love.
Okay.
Animal love is always conditional. It's based on bloodline, physical attractiveness, gratitude for what somebody else can do for you, possessiveness, um,
It's
dependency.
very conditional.
Yeah, it's situationally related. Um, Unconditional love is accepting without judgment another person, entity, being, soul, human for what they are, not for what they give you, not for what they can do for you, not for what their relationship to you is, not for any other reason other than they are another part of you. We're all source. We're all one. We're all parts of each other. Now, I've had a lot of people um, confuse unconditional love with accepting abuse.
Mm-hmm.
We have to unconditionally love ourselves as well as others. And that means we do not have to be a doormat for somebody else. We do not have to let somebody else push us around. We do not have to allow them to abuse us physically, emotionally, mentally. We can stand up for ourselves. That's unconditional love. Unconditional love, the way I learned it in the afterlife, is doing what's best for the greatest number of people. Well, the greatest number of souls or light beings, because it was in the afterlife. It was the greatest number of light beings. But here on earth, it would be for the greatest number of people. And sometimes, if there's a group of people and there's no perfect solution that's going to make them all happy, you do what's best for most of them. And that's still unconditional love, even though not all of them get what they want. And it's unconditional love when you do what's best for others, even though it doesn't help you any. That's the best unconditional love. The very first time I went to an IONS meeting, International Association for Near-Death Studies, the leader of the group, and I was, telling my NDE story. And when I was coming back in the body, I was told that I had two missions. One was to tell anyone who would listen what
Mm-hmm.
I experienced and what I learned in the afterlife. The other one was to experience unconditional love as Nanci. And after that, I tried to find a mate. I tried to find unconditional love in the mating scene,
Yeah.
But the leader of that IONS group said, Nanci, you can always experience unconditional love. Give it away.
Mm.
And that's true. We can experience unconditional love both by receiving it and by giving it away.
Mm.
And in our incarnated life, we're probably going to give it away more than we are going to receive it. But we can also receive true, blissful, unconditional love from all those people who love us.
Mm.
We can ask Source to fill us with unconditional love. We can ask our loved ones in the afterlife to hold us in their spiritual embrace. We can ask for what we need and get it. And I know you probably had experiences yourself, Lisa.
I think that the time that that's most palpable is, like you said, when you've gone into that meditation state where the mind is quiet and you're not thinking about trying to achieve something. You're just able to be peaceful being and receive. And then that's when I certainly really feel that unconditional love. And it feels like a strong energy and it feels so wonderful. And then when I'm, finished with the meditation, it's like, oh, because there it goes. And then I'm back to my mind, doing what it does. And so it feels temporary, but I know, like, intellectually, I know it's always there. And it's just about me getting out of the way to be able to receive that. It's not that they stop sending me love. It's that I get busy thinking I'm doing other things and you know, I don't focus on it. But when I make the time for it, then I can really sense it.
Yeah. That's the key. We have to put in the time or take the time or enjoy the time.
Yeah, and that's, I think I remember when I was starting off with meditation and I just didn't want to do it because it just seemed like a chore and it seemed so hard. And, now that I've been able to have these experiences, then I'm not looking at it like, oh, this is an awful uh, task that I have to do. It's, oh, I get to actually feel that beautiful feeling if I can just practice and train, like training. You've talked before about training the human. It's like training the human, training my brain to relax and quiet and allow that space for bliss and connection with my greater self as well.
Yeah, that's totally true that you have to train yourself and practice. And like with manifesting or any of these other spiritual superpowers where you need to get into that observer, that witness role, that perspective, the more you do it, the faster it comes. And
Yeah.
so once you really practice at it, like I can do a manifesting intention in seconds.
Mm.
And once you're used to doing it and you can get into that mode quickly, it'll only take you seconds. And
Yeah.
so it's not a chore.
It's like anything that you practice and you get better at, it just becomes easy. I was thinking of
Yes.
when you were saying about giving away unconditional love. I've found the easiest and the most natural ones for me comes with an animal. For example, you see an animal that's struggling and you just go over and you help it, get out of whatever situation, like just something simple. And you're not looking for anything from the animal. You're like, you were stuck and I freed you. And then I go on my way. And to me, that's actually a good example of the most unconditional love because it's all, I just care about you as a being and I want you to be well. And so I'm doing what I can for you. And I'm not expecting you to come back and give me a hug or something, like just live your life is the reward.
That reminds me that another way of giving unconditional love is to ourselves. Do you know how many people don't treat themselves as well as they treat their pets?
Probably most, I would
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that's one of the hardest things, actually. I've experienced it, and most people I talk to, loving yourself is hard because you've learned, as you said, you've learned from in utero and on up to dislike things. All the criticisms, you turn inward and say, "Oh, well, I mustn't be good enough," or you judge, 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 and that's become what's been learned and easy is the judgment. And so now we have to swap that and train the positive instead.
yes. Well, Lisa, you said that some of your viewers or listeners had questions for me. Do you want to
Yeah.
do them?
Well, one thing that I noticed, just a few people were wondering about the different experiences that, or different people who've had NDEs have different experiences. And now certainly there's some commonalities, but they're not all exactly the same. And some people will see Jesus and some people don't. Do you have any insights on why that is from your perspective?
Yes, I was actually told why that is.
Oh, okay.
Um, First of all, you have to realize that heaven is a state of mind. It's entirely mental and emotional. There is no physical component.
Right.
So, but, when we first cross over into the afterlife, we souls are used to having a physical environment. We're used to seeing things and hearing things and feeling things the way a human does. And because once we get out of the body, we instantly manifest physical reality. We can instantly manifest what we expect the afterlife to be like, particularly if we know that we're dying and then we do die and cross over. Those people who believe the afterlife is going to be, beautiful gardens and crystal cities and wonderful music and beautiful colors will get that for a while. It's a way that Source has of comforting us, of helping us make that transition out of the human experience and into the spiritual one. So we're able to manifest the things that would comfort a human for as long as we need them to. And that's also true of religious figures. If we expect to see Jesus in the afterlife, there's that expectation is the creative intention of manifesting. So we will manifest the apparition of Jesus. When we're in the afterlife, we can manifest a completely real experience of whatever we want. And so some people will manifest the experience of Jesus, and it'll be completely real and completely beautiful and completely theirs. So what we manifest when we first cross over into the afterlife is just for us. It doesn't exist for other people. Right. So the souls around us won't see it, but we will, and we will live it, and we will experience it. And that's completely real for us. So the reason why that near-death experiencers all have different stories is partly because they manifest different things when they cross over. And 99% of near-death experiencers just get a toe in the door. They don't get very far into the afterlife. I did. I went through the entire process through eternal life and merging into source. 99% of near-death experiencers don't do that. So what we see and what we hear in their stories is mostly what they've manifested. And like people who believe that they should go to hell will manifest a hellish environment for themselves. That doesn't make hell real, except for them.
Right.
And so that's why it's so, so important to heal these erroneous and harmful beliefs that we have while we're in human life, particularly before we, are ready to cross over.
And once you've been through that manifestation, what would you say is the stage that's past that?
We generally, the process is automatic. There are several stages to crossing over. You may not experience them in order, but what the stages are is when we first get out of the body, go into a void, a black void or darkness. Then you see the light. You go into the light. Then you start getting downloads of knowings, like we talked about knowings before. Then you have a life review. And the life review is kind of the big tool that helps us transition from thinking like a human and thinking we are human to resuming our true spiritual nature, because it allows us to look at the entire human life in context with unconditional love instead of judgment. So it allows us to see the difference between how we were inside a human body and how we are in eternal life, and make that face for ourselves. It's an eye-opening experience to objectively view your life, because you forget so much of it. But it's part of the transition. And most souls, once they've gone through the life review, they're through the major part of the transition. And then the next stages are generally when a near-death experiencer dies, or most people die, if they're in the incarnation phase of eternal life, they return to the state of existence where we incarnate. If you finish the incarnation stage of life, you may go into a stage that I went into, which is where we live vicariously by merging our energy into others that we love and experiencing vicariously what they experienced in physical life or eternal life. It's like a virtual reality game, only super souped up. And there are other levels that I didn't experience, but I was aware that they existed. Right. I don't know what they are. The very last stage is we wake up to the knowledge that we are source and that we've never been a separate being or entity or anything like that.
Like going fully home, back to our full self.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy, so much for sharing all of this wonderful information of your experience. I know it's so beneficial and so uplifting and inspiring. And, there's so much to cover, but I think we've got to the nuggets of it all in our two calls. And as people can see behind you, you have your beautiful books, the Backwards series. And then you have a couple of new ones as well. So I'll put those up on the screen for people. But they can access
Thank you.
those from your websites, and from
Yes, sir.
book retailers
Amazon,
all
Barnes
over.
and Noble, yeah,
Yeah.
eBay, Walmart.
And as you're saying, you do coaching, so people can also connect one-on-one with you to have their personal sessions. So I'll put your website up for that as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
I adore you so much, Nancy. Thank you for agreeing to come on and be in video and on the radio with us to share your message to all sorts of people far and wide so that we can all perhaps start manifesting a little more consciously for ourselves and living a happier lives.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa, for helping me with my mission.
It is my sincere pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. I will see you next time.